as a medical doctor in your field of expertise, I'm sure that our audience would be interested to know as to, has there been any time where science has caused you to even doubt your own faith in God and in the scriptures?
In fact, in med school, I was not a person who believed in the God of the Bible in the true sense, as knowing Him as my God. But going through the journey as an unbelieving science student into my anatomy lab, dissecting the cadaver and seeing the way it was so beautifully designed, the pattern of muscles, the nerves, the vessels. It was fascinating for us. I said, this has to have a designer. And so it was when we came to physiology. I said, how amazingly the neuromuscular junction functions to have a signal that is passed on as a microelectric current. And I said, it's fascinating. You come to biochemistry, so finely tuned that when you look at these enzymes, the right kind of proportions, otherwise the reaction doesn't even happen. Every bit in an unbelieving mind raised a thought that there must be a designer, whether it's a personal designer or an entity or a creator or a god. There is someone you have to put a name to. But I believe your question was more on the conflict that you would have faced as science that it ever brought me to.
Exactly.
In the sense, I think the biggest challenge that I would have faced was more about the evolutionary aspect, which was spoken about a lot earlier from my pre-medical days, actually, from my pre-med days. And one of the thoughts was about how could you have this, it is so obvious that the evolution is so obvious. What is the big deal about religion talking about a creator? You don't need to postulate a new being. It is automatic. You have an abiogenesis. Out of the prebiotics chemical soup, you have the first cellular organism comes and then it goes increasing in complexity. Then comes along Michael Behe, who says, wait a minute. If complexity is serial and sequential, how is it that a single-celled organism like a euglena has got a flagellum which has got 22 microparts in it with multiple rotors and motors which are immensely complex? He calls it irreducible complexity. Wow. To begin with, there is complexity. It is not just some kind of sequential thing. How do you explain it? You're foxed. And I think in that sense, the way the DNA is designed, and as an entity that is there in every creature of its own, as a pattern for it to grow into, this actually what seemed to be a contradiction and what seemed to be a conflictual situation or a challenge actually became an opportunity for me to see, oh, wait a minute, there seems to be more than it meets the eye. It's all about how deep I have to go to understand what it is, rather than be presumptuous and say, look at what science says. So I began understanding that every time there seemed to be a contradiction or an apparent contradiction that is there, I wanted to look more about, has the scripture been interpreted correctly in the first place? Wow. Or has science reached the spot to make a comment on the existence there? So that is where the tension came across. For example, the Bible declares about planets hanging on nothing in the book of Job. I mean, we have different mythologies have one layer after the other supporting till you reach the bottommost, and you wonder who supports the bottommost one. And is it just Atlas carrying the world around, or who carries Atlas then? So in a sense, you suddenly realize that there are limitations in existing worldviews, and suddenly you come across where it talks about hangs on nothing, and it's exactly corroborative of the reality of science. And you're stunned. You say, how does it happen? And of course, then comes the theories on the laws of planetary motion which came along, and Copernicus, Kepler, and Newton. And all of them had very deep Christian faith in a sense. Exactly. Still, they found it not a contradiction. They actually went along to say that these are the laws set by the Maker.
Hello everyone. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also please follow us on our social media handles, the link for which you can find down below in the description.